Hello everyone, welcome and joining us today at the election wrap. I am Vivian Goh, financial coach here at Verse, and I have Corey, which is the founder of Verse Wealth, joining us as well. Corey, how are you?
Very well, Vivian. Thank
Yeah.
you for having me.
Yep, so have you been following the election really closely over the weekend?
Really closely is a bit of a stretch. I did start a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle with my beautiful partner Christy on Saturday night. I got about 17 pieces in, and then canned that idea and watched a bit of the election. Saw ScoMo skate to his miracle victory.
Yeah, that's exactly how he started his speech, wasn't it? That he believed in miracles.
Absolutely. I think last time we had a video together post budget, we were talking about the Liberals being 5-1, very unlikely to win. There's some bookmakers that paid out early on a Labor victory, which I don't think was a wise business decision for them in hindsight. And you know, it was I guess a reinforcement to a lot of people out there that when you hear these policies getting thrown around, you don't need to go and take action immediately. You know, keep your powder dry, wait till the election plays out, see who wins, and then see what legislation actually comes through following any election win.
Yeah, you actually never really know what's going to happen in the future. But there's just been a lot of kind of noise out there, news around Labor policies and whatnot. So I think let's just start with clarifying a few things. What are the recommendations and policies by Labor that is actually not going ahead? I think one of the big ones is actually around the franking credits. Help us understand what really is going on.
Yeah, sure. I think in hindsight, Labor's really broad and ambitious policy package probably was their downfall. I think Australians have voted for the devil that they know rather than the devil that they don't. And I think the big policy reforms that Labor were proposing kind of gave the Liberal Party impetus to attack their policies and perhaps stoke some fear in some of the voters out there, none more so than Labor's plan to remove the franking credit refund. It sounds like a bit of jargon, but basically franking credit's what you get when you get dividends if you are an investor in shares. Company pays tax on their profit at 30%, you get your dividend, that 30% tax they've paid gets handed to you by the way of a credit to avoid the double taxation, first in the hands of the company, then in the individual. And basically that reduces your tax, but if you're not paying any tax, you get that back as a cash refund, which most retirees do, because most retirees are living off their superannuation, which is non-taxable. So that cash refund's been helpful to them. And the Liberal Party really did attack this as a retiree tax and an attack on retirees. The rhetoric was pretty strong. I think it's won them some votes. Ultimately, I actually think it was a bit overblown. It's only about 4% of Australians that were going to be affected, and that's self-funded retirees that weren't receiving any age pension at all. So a very small portion of the Australian population are ones that are doing really well, but I'm sure there's plenty out there that are breathing a sigh of relief on that one.
Yeah, 4%, but it feels like the way that market it's like the entire population will be affected.
Absolutely.
So the next one is around negative gearing. We hear this a lot on the news. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So again, a lot of headlines around the plan from the pending Labor government to remove the concessions for negative gearing. Basically, in short, for property investors out there, you'll know this. If you invest in a property and you receive your rent, your income, and that is lower than the amount of expenses that you have, including the interest costs on your loan, that loss you can claim as a tax deduction each year. And this has been, I guess, fuel for the property market for a long time, impetus and so at times unintelligent impetus for people to invest in property. Labor was hoping to kind of combat the affordability issue, put some downward pressure on property prices by removing those concessions, but had a lot of people up in arms again and again impetus for ScoMo to attack the policy.
Yeah, okay. So negative gearing is staying. There's also capital gains tax, that's staying too, right?
Yeah, so I'll keep this one pretty short. Labor had proposed to cut in half the capital gains tax discount. If you have an investment, you've owned it longer than 12 months, you sell it at a profit, the profit's taxable, but under current rules, half of that profit you get tax-free, the other half you pay tax on. Labor was proposing that half that you get tax-free would be reduced to 25%. Again, I guess removing some of the incentive for people to invest in the Australian property market and push up prices further, but again, would have affected a lot of investors moving forward.
Yeah, talking about property, so how about the First Home Super Saver scheme?
Yeah, so the plan was for Labor to abolish that First Home Super Saver scheme. I can barely get that one out. I'm glad I did speech therapy in early primary school, but the Liberal Party introduced this a couple of years ago now to help young Australians save their deposit by way of getting money into super, getting a tax deduction for it, and then getting it out when it's time to front up that deposit and buy their home. And Labor was planning on abolishing that policy. They didn't really have a replacement policy in place per se, but the plan was for them to remove that.
Good news for first home buyers now. What other things that you think would be important for our audience to know that is a Labor policy that's not going ahead?
Yeah, a couple of quick things. I don't want to make this video too long, but a few things to note. One is Labor had planned to remove the ability for employed people to make what's called personal deductible contributions. If you're a client averse, you've probably had contact from us in recent weeks about getting a contribution into super and claim a tax deduction for it before 30 June. Historically, you've had to salary sacrifice to get those additional contributions in. Government previously kind of opened up the rules to make that more flexible. Labor was planning on kind of closing that flexibility, which doesn't change your bottom line, just makes things a little more challenging. You've got to go through your payroll or HR to do that. Secondly, they were planning on doubling the taxation of super contributions from 15% to 30% for Australians earning above 200,000.
Yep.
At the moment, the double taxation does apply, but it's for income earners above 250,000. So they're planning on dropping that threshold down to 200,000. Means more people paying more tax on their super contributions, and there's less money in that fund to work towards retirement moving forward. A couple of other items as well, Vivian. There was a plan to reduce what's called the non-concessional contribution limit. That's basically large lump sums that you can put into your super, and they don't have that 15% tax applied. The limit at the moment is 100,000 per annum. We can do 3 years at once, i.e. 300,000. Labor plan to reduce that from 100,000 a year to 75,000 a year. Again, that's off the table now. Good for older Australians looking to bump up the super pre-retirement. And then the final one was Labor had planned to, in their words, close some of the loopholes that wealthy people are using via family trusts or discretionary trusts, where they were going to impose a minimum tax on distributions from a family trust at a tax rate of 30%. Now, this would have affected a lot of Australians that investing through a family trust or own their business through a family trust, meaning they have a company and the shares in the company are owned by their family trust, and they might be distributing income between family members. That's a pretty common strategy for small business owners. That probably would have been off the table, and a lot of people would have been working with their accountant to perhaps restructure the ownership of their business. So, they're all things that at this stage, we're not going to see because, as we said, ScoMo had that miracle victory.
Sure. So let's spend some time to talk about what's actually going to happen. What's the proposal from the Liberal Party? I think one of the biggest change that we were going to see, we actually mentioned in our budget wrap a couple of weeks ago.
We did.
And that was around the low income tax offset. That's going to go to low income and middle income tax offset. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So previously, if you're earning below about $40,000, don't quote me on the exact dollar figure, you're entitled to what's called a low income tax offset, basically $540 that gets paid back to you come tax time. As you said, Vivian, they're extending that to middle income earners. So in short, if you're earning between 48,000 and 90,000, you're going to get a full tax offset of $1,080. That's double the old offset. If you're earning between 90 and 126, you'll get an offset, but it will go from the 1,080 to phasing out to zero when your income reaches that point. If you're earning below 40,000, you'll still get a healthy tax offset, but not quite the 1,080. It'll phase out going the other way. And that one, importantly, it's effective immediately. So those offsets are available for people when they do their tax returns for the 18-19 financial year. So for those tax return strugglers, you know who you are, get in there and get your return done quickly and bank that money and put it towards something that you value.
Yeah, that's absolutely great news for younger families, I think. There's another tax reform that's coming, which
Yep.
is the mega 30% tax bracket.
Yep.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, we mentioned this post federal budget wrap up. I won't spend too long here because this is still a fair way away, but the government's proposing some pretty significant tax reform in future years. I think it was 24, 25, so still a little while away. But basically introducing a mega 30% tax bracket where basically for 94% of Australians, they won't pay tax on their income at a tax rate above 30%. So the 32.5% tax bracket will come down to 30, and they'll abolish the current 37.5% tax bracket. So that will actually be a huge win for a lot of Australians if we get to that point, and it still means another Liberal victory in the meantime to see that one come through.
Yeah, exactly. So that's for individuals and families. How about
Yep.
for businesses? So I think there's two main wins for businesses. One is around the tax rate, company tax rate,
Yep.
that potentially may come down in the future,
Yep.
and also the instant asset write-off. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, sure. So the company tax rate for small businesses at the moment is 27.5%. Not too long ago it was 30%, so it's on its way down, which is good for small business owners. The government's planning to reduce that from 27.5% to 25%. This is currently legislated to reduce, but not until 25, 26 or 26, 27. So it's a while away. The government has promised to fast track that and bring that 25% company tax rate in 21, 22 for businesses with under a $50 million turnover.
Yeah.
And the instant asset write-off, yes, I knew there was two parts.
Yep.
To your question, that's been around for a couple of years now. Basically, for businesses, they can incur a capital expense and write off the deduction in 1 year rather than staggering it over a number of years. The current instant asset write-off threshold is 20 or 25,000, Vivian. It's 25,000 at the moment. The plan is to increase that to 30,000 effective, I think, next year.
Yeah, okay. Great news for small business and medium-sized business owners. I know we touched on around the first home buyers,
Yep.
and now there's this new thing called the first home loan deposit scheme.
Yeah.
So great news to first home buyers out there. Share a little bit more about how does this loan deposit thing work?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's plenty of news about this last week. I think it might have been Monday last week. Scott Morrison came out and announced this policy. To me personally, it really felt like a vote grab. Very late pre-election when they were staring down the barrel of a likely loss. The plan here is for them to basically guarantee the loans of first home buyers based on a few conditions. So at the moment, most people are familiar with the fact that you've got to save a deposit of 20% of the property value. That can take quite a while. You go to the bank or a lender to get the loan for the other 80%. The government's proposing that for those that earn below 125,000, or couples that earn below 200,000, they just need to save a 5% deposit, and then they can go to the bank to get the loan for the other 95% to get into the market sooner and address the affordability issue. And that 15%, the gap between the 5 and the 20, basically the government's going to back that. They're going to guarantee that portion of the loan up until the time which the property's sold or refinanced down the track. So this is going to mean that fewer Australians are relying on mum and dad through guarantor loans or family pledge loans. They won't have to incur what's called lender's mortgage insurance, LMI, which is basically, think of it like a tax on your loan that you get nothing for, that you pay over the life of the loan.
Yeah, and that usually costs about 10,000.
It can be quite significant depending on the size of your loan. So on the surface, this seems like a reasonable strategy. I think there's more detail to come out about it. It really was thrown out there last week. There will be a limit on the value of the home. You can actually
That makes sense.
purchase through the scheme. Those limits they've said are going to be regional. So if you're in Sydney, that limit might be higher, or if you're in a country town in South Australia, that limit might be significantly lower. So we'll wait and see what detail the government comes out with in the coming months. And that might be something that we're talking about with plenty of people out there before too long.
Yeah, and was there also a limit on number of applications for the number of loans that would get that support.
Yeah, absolutely. The government didn't spend too much time talking about this, but I think they're looking at this stage capping it at 10,000 loans.
Yeah.
10,000 guarantees of loans per annum. At the moment, that makes up about 10% of first home buyers annually. So we have about 100,000 Australians buying their first home each year. So, we're talking a small portion of that market, really.
Yeah, they still have to figure out the approval process and what are the criteria, who to say yes and no to. Because everyone would want a piece of it, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, on the surface it sounds quite good.
Yeah, so how about the last one I want to touch on is around the work test for people that are aged 66 and 67. We touched on this on the budget wrap before again. Let's just clarify it again. What is that?
Sure. So the government is, and this is part of the recent budget, planning on extending the ability for older Australians to contribute to super from age 65 to age 67. So at the moment, if you're over 65 and you want to contribute, you need to meet what's called a work test. Basically work 40 hours in any rolling 30-day period during the course of the financial year, and you can contribute. If you don't meet that test, you can't contribute. They're planning on extending that limit from 65 to 67, so that in that couple of years, if you're not working, you can still contribute. To me, this makes absolute sense. People can get that, those last lump sums in the super before they actually do retire, or even if they are retired, and bring that limit in line with the age pension, which for most is 67.
Okay. So that's the wrap up of the election from us. Corey, is there any other opinions, anything you want to share with our audience before we finish up?
I don't think so, Viv. That was a solid wrap up. Hopefully you've got some value out of that. For our clients out there, if there are any questions for you coming out of the election win for ScoMo and the Liberals, please do be in touch. We'll see some of this being legislated over the short term as well. If you're out there and you're watching this and you're not getting advice and you would like to talk with myself or Vivian or our team about the advice and coaching we provide people to help them live their best life, feel free to send us an email at admin@versewealth.com.au, or you can make an inquiry through our website and we can make time for a casual chat.
Yeah, well said, Corey. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Viv. Bye.